So let's have the national anthem and start the event. Thanks. National.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उत्कल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Namaskar, very good evening, very warm welcome to all of you, my dear friends. It is a great honor, great privilege for me and for all of us to have our Honorable Foreign Minister, Dr. Jai Shankar in Dublin. This is the very first bilateral visit by an Indian Foreign Minister to Ireland. Dr. Jai Shankar does not need any introduction. However, as a young service colleague and also for the benefit of young professionals in the crowd, I wish to share something about his leadership style. In Sanskrit, there is a saying, Karya siddhi sattve bhavati mahatam nopakarane. The great men achieve success not because of the resources they have, but because of their mind. And our foreign minister embodies the power of thought, power of strategic mind. And this strategic mind I can share with you because I have been minimum 2 decades following and admiring him. It has 3 main critical elements. First is that you have to have exceptional foresight, anticipate problems that you are going to face like a game of chess, many pieces, many steps ahead of everyone else. Second, you have to have your own action plan, which should be very grounded, taking into account all different things that can go wrong. And even after your most grounded, well-planned strategy, things go wrong way and not go the way you desired, then the most important thing comes that you must remain calm and have fortitude and calmly find a way out. So this is what our Honorable Foreign Minister represents and how he inspires us. I was in Delhi. Honorable Minister had just taken over, and a few months later, the whole world faced the most challenging crisis of the century, the corona pandemic. And I can tell you that Honorable Minister had alerted us minimum 2 months in advance of what things can happen and how we should prepare for it. It required such a complex planning from repatriating Indians from 100 countries. It was world's largest civilian repatriation exercise, 18 million people. And it was not just the issue of logistics that you arrange the airfare. It was also like take care of every single individual's isolation and his transportation from the airport to his hometown. So Ministry of External Affairs had to coordinate with practically all ministries in Delhi, and also we had to coordinate with all state governments and also district authorities. So I can never forget the calm, the leadership, the vision, the guidance that Honorable Minister provided us in dealing with that crisis of the century. So there is a lesson for all the young professionals in the crowd that you should imbibe. Sir, before I invite you to speak, I also wish to share something about the Indian community here. I have been dealing with the Indian diaspora for 35 years, but I have never seen a diaspora like Irish. This is truly exceptional in the sense that in the level of their professional qualifications and also in level of their median earning, they are the highest in Ireland. Secondly, in India, our Prime Minister has given us a vision of women-led development. We have women-led community in Ireland. You will be very happy to know, sir, that the Indian women in Ireland have 4-5% higher median earning than their male counterparts. Also, sir, as ambassador, I can never express my gratitude enough to Indian women, particularly nurses, because of their service in the front line during the corona period. The goodwill for India has reached not only every county of Ireland, but almost every home of Ireland. Thirdly, the community here is probably the most generous we have encountered, most helpful community that we have encountered, and because of their help, we are able to actually implement the vision of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. We have started, sir, state-wise, state-themed cultural events. We have held already 9 state-focused cultural events in the embassy. We have held Hindi Day celebration inspired by Kashi Tamil Sangamam with participation of 18 Indian languages. We had textile exhibition with 20 Indian states participating based on the talent in the community. Last 3.5 years, we have had very regular cultural activities, but not one penny we have spent for bringing artists from India because we have so much talent here. So that is why, sir, I'm particularly honored and privileged on behalf of the Indian diaspora to welcome you. We are really grateful that in your very busy schedule, you spare time to visit Dublin. As I said, first time in 75 years, a foreign minister has come, and also you are very kind to spare time for inspiring our community. Thank you so much.
Namaskar. Good evening. Good to see you all. Ambassador, friends, it's been a long day, but I can't think of a better way of ending the day than to be with all of you. And I want to begin by thanking you and also saying it took a little while for a foreign minister to come. But now that I'm here, I'm trying to make the most of it. But I really want to thank you, and I will tell you why. all over the world. It's very, normal that wherever you go, people say good things about Indians. I always tell others that when we speak of the image of India, others they don't look at a map to have an image of India. They remember a person. They remember somebody they know, some experience with them, a face, a relationship, a feeling. And while I have experienced this across the world, I must tell you, I felt it very, very strongly, so I can fully understand what the ambassador was trying to convey. I've just come a little while ago from a meeting with President Higgins. Earlier in the day, I met a collection of people, including the former Taoiseach Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, some of the ministers in the cabinet. Tomorrow, I will be meeting my counterpart, Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Simon Harris. But in all the meetings, for me, it was a great, I would say, sense of pride. They brought up the Indian community. They mentioned the contribution of the Indian community. Exactly what the ambassador said, that the professionals out here, the people who have contributed to the not just development but especially the health sector in this country. So I want to really sincerely give a very big thank you on behalf of the nation, because you make my job and my life easier. Now, when you prepare for a visit, you take your job reasonably seriously, professionally. They give you a lot of folders. They will say, these are the problems. I must say, with Ireland, the preparations were very easy. There were no big problems. There were mostly good things which they told me. And I found, trade was reasonably good, about $16 billion at least, maybe higher. That the Indian community, I'm now told, is almost 1 lakh. That the number of students is about, I think 13,000 was the new number that they gave me. And with Ireland itself, we have a very good tradition, and we have a very old tradition. In fact, before I came here, my immediate engagement was in the university college. And I was telling the students there that if any of you check Wikipedia, just go into Wikipedia, do India-Ireland relations. Something very interesting pops up. It's a 1920 lecture given by the person who became President of Ireland, Yemen de Valera, in New York, making a case why India should be free. Now, when we look at this part of the world, Europe, there was no other country, no other political force, political leadership which took that position at that time. In fact, most of this region largely stood with the colonial power. And Ireland, in many ways, was an exception because it was itself occupied. So, we've always had this very, I would say, special connection with Ireland. So when we look at how the Irish themselves have built their nation, their freedom struggle, how they have revived their culture, because the colonial period, colonial power tries to erase the culture. In fact, there is so much which is actually worth knowing, worth learning, worth thinking about. And so even though, I had official meetings, I still did 2 things today, which I'm sure many of you have done, but if you have not, I would recommend it. One, I went to the General Post Office, which was the center of the Easter Rising in 1960, where I would say in the 20th century, if there was one symbol anywhere in the world of people rising up against the colonial power, the most potent one was the General Post Office in Dublin. And as a country which fought for its own freedom, for me, that was an important first stop. And then somewhere in my programs, I found time for one other thing, which I had promised myself I would do, which is to visit, a site or a place which for them, in terms of their cultural revival, was very important. Because here is a country whose actually language was under threat, not just culture. And I went to see the Book of Kells, which is a UNESCO World Heritage site here. And I do want to tell you that for us, Ireland has been a very good partner. There are people with whom I have worked with multiple ministers, including the current one, and many of his predecessors. So, for all of you, do be assured, in fact, make the most of this relationship, because I think we think well of this country, they think well of us. We work together in multiple forums. In fact, our soldiers are even deployed together in Lebanon in the UN force. So there is a lot going for us here, and I'm very sure with all the contributions and everything that you do, it'll only get better. Now, having said that, I also want you to know one other important development, which is that Ireland, as part of the European Union, will naturally get many of the advantages which will happen when our relationship with the European Union will improve. And we just last week had something unprecedented in our history, which was there was a new European Commission. So the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and 21 out of the 27 commissioners came together to India. They have never done a visit like this. And it says something today that because, eventually I do want to, share with you what is happening at home, and I know all of you obviously are interested in that. That when 21 European commissioners come together in a very rare gesture, clearly there is a shift, there is an improvement in the world's interest in India. And it's not a one-off, A day after that, in fact, we had a big business delegation led by there's a lady called Princess Astrid, who is the king's sister in Belgium. So she led a business delegation of, I think, about 350, 360 companies from Belgium. And I mention this to you because we are today attracting the interest of the world. There are things happening in India. It's important that you know this. It's important to talk about it, because at the end of the day, if people in Ireland have to have a better sense of what is happening in India, they will get it best from you. People like me may come, give a speech, others may follow us or not, but those who work with you, those who are your neighbors, those who are your friends, those who are your colleagues, they are the people who will listen to you, who, when you take pride in your country, some of it will rub off onto them, and that's what I would like you to do. So, I do want to speak a few words about what is happening in India. Last year, we, as you all know, did our general elections. And today, in the world, you will see many countries are worrying about democracy. They are worrying about elections. They are worrying about stability. They are worrying about extremism in politics. So, for us, this election which we did last year, actually in the history of the world, is the largest ever democratic election if you look at the number of votes which people cast. And the good thing about our elections, we argue intensely, but once the elections are over, once the results are out, whoever wins, the great thing about our country is people have accepted. And you will get very hot arguments, but what will happen is from time to time, the opposition parties will complain and then the opposition will win an election. Then they will feel very happy till the next election where they may or may not win it. So why I mention this to you is sometimes what happens regularly, something which is so obvious, we take it for granted. I do want you all to take pride in India's democracy. In the fact that our elections are clean, they are not disputed. Today we are way, even in application of technology, we are way beyond much of the world. It's a paradox that many developed countries are using voting techniques which, we put behind us many decades ago. The second is actually the embrace of technology in India. Now, I don't know how often you go back to India, but I'm sure with each visit you will discover that more people take their phones for shopping rather than their wallets. And the reason is, if you look today at cashless payments, you look at every government service which is based on some kind of digital delivery. Even tomorrow, if any of you have to renew your passport, look how fast that passport renewal happens, because there is a database. In the old days, anybody who wanted a passport would go to an embassy. So the poor ambassador would have many of you coming there. You will have to fill in a form. He will send it by bag to the regional passport officer. Somebody will check something. It will take you months to get a reply. And the reply may not even be a good reply. So today, look at it. His embassy has access to an integrated database. They are able to verify your particulars literally in a matter of minutes. Almost every service today which is rendered by the embassy, again, is moving that much faster. Now, the embassies are not an exception. It is actually happening pretty much in every government office in India. So if you look at filing income tax and how fast your income tax returns are validated, approved, processed. Look at driving license. Look at any service which any government office gives today, from giving rations to allocating houses to issuing health cards to making, to giving loans to people. So the digitization of India, the embrace of technology, is actually transformational. And I say this to you because if in this region there is any country which has an IT prowess, which has a digital reputation, it is Ireland. And those of you who live must spread this, how much actually today India is changing in terms of the embrace of technology. The second change, which is much more physically visible, is of course in infrastructure. That I think today I could probably say without fear of contradiction that the greatest amount of new infrastructure being built anywhere in the world today is probably in India. And again, it's happening in front of our eyes. Because it is happening, we take it for granted. In fact, we not only take it for granted, all of us, including me, we sometimes even complain, that road is blocked, why are they digging here, why do I have to go through that inconvenience? But every part of it, something is happening. And if you look back, sometimes when we reflect on the last 10 years, 10 years ago, we had 75 airports in India. Today we have 150. That means in 10 years, 75 new airports have come. So if you go to any other country and say, you know what guys, I built 7 to 8 airports a year, new airports a year, I don't think they believe you. Now, it isn't just the airports. it's the highways. The highways, the quality of roads. Any of you who's going back to your hometown, please reflect on it next time. How much easier your ride was as compared to the previous years. And the reason is, when you look at the raw numbers, we are actually building close to 30 kilometers of highway a day. We are building about 12-14 kilometers of railway track a day. If you see again, any of you who uses the railways today, you look at the change in trains. I'm not even talking, of logistics, of goods delivery, etc., because average citizen may not get involved in it. But if you look at the train, you look at the air service, look at the airports, look at the roads, look even at education. Look at the number of medical colleges, look at the number of hospitals. So, the physical infrastructure, the facilities available to people, that is taking place at a great rate. But for me, the biggest change is actually attitude. That there is today a sense in India that we are capable of doing big things. That if you look at the big challenges, and the ambassador mentioned COVID, I can tell you we are talking of maybe middle January of 2020 when COVID had first come into everybody's minds. There was a video meeting of the G20 leaders, and there was actually a briefing done by the World Bank, if my memory is right. And I was, Prime Minister Modi was obviously attending, and I was sitting behind him. And I still remember the thrust of that meeting was, we have this terrible thing which is going to hit the world, this pandemic. Millions of people are going to die. I mean, this is unstoppable. It's going to spread everywhere. And the country of the greatest cause of concern in the world is India. This was actually said at the briefing. And it was said in all honesty, in all sincerity. Because people believe, the world believed at that time, that our society, our economy, our government would not be able to deal with the crisis at this point. Now we began, and I want to say there was some basis. Because when COVID first came, I mean, you would be surprised, even masks were made in very, very small quantities in India, leave alone ventilators and PPEs. And for a country which was predicted to be actually the biggest headache for the world, we ended up actually as one of the largest vaccine suppliers. We actually ramped up our medicine production. Sometimes I was not sure whether I was the foreign minister or I was an agent for fielding medical inquiries from the world. We sent medicines to 150 countries, and interestingly, a lot of them were European countries who were calling you up and saying, and they were running short of very basic things like paracetamol. That medicine shortage, later vaccine shortage, the other, the PPE, the gloves. So what it showed us was that we had the ability to rise to a challenge, a once-in-a-century challenge. And then if you look with that kind of attitude at many other things that we have done, we had, soon after COVID, a challenge on our borders, with China. Now again, if you think back, a lot of people said, this is very serious, which was true. It was a very big challenge, which was also true. But the fact was, our military was deployed, we stood there, we took a long time, we stood our ground, we were very patient, determined about it, and we finally handled it. So, what we have discovered today, even when the Ukraine conflict took place, the Ukraine conflict actually had very interesting repercussions across the world. there was immediately an oil crisis. Oil prices, gas prices went up. Actually, food prices went up because Ukraine was a very big supplier of wheat and even cooking oil to the rest of the world. Fertilizer prices went up because Russia and Ukraine, between them, were the two biggest producers of fertilizers for the rest of the world. Now, again, if you see, we not only took care of our needs, in many cases, most of our neighbors actually got their fuel, their food, their fertilizer from us, just like they got their vaccines from us during the COVID. So, this willingness to take responsibility, this ability to rise to challenge, this is a kind of a different India with a much stronger willpower and spirit. And that is something that all of you who today are living abroad, but whose heart and mind is so much in India, it is something that you should all appreciate. And when we see our other achievements, like going to the moon, what Chandrayaan did, or as I said during COVID, we used to be a country which would actually get vaccines at the tail end of the world's production. Yes, we made a lot of vaccines. We actually also invented vaccines. We created our own vaccines during this period. We were a country on telecom, which is so critical for our existence today. We got our 2G, 3G, 4G technology from Europe and China. But today, our 5G technology is an India stack. And the fastest rollout of 5G today, which is happening anywhere in the world, is actually in India. And we are very confident that when it comes to 6G, we'll be among the early movers rather than one of the laggards. But, one part of it is what is happening in India. And I see a lot of young people here. I also want to say, for me, as a person, who travels in India, goes to universities, goes to professional meetings, I also see this spirit, this can-do spirit very strongly in young people. That when I look today at any event which involves innovation, which involves invention, which involves patents. In fact, I find even in universities, a lot of universities introduce you to students not by the marks that they've got, but actually by the patents that they have got. And I think that's a very interesting, mindset change today in India. But beyond that, I think there is also the issue of how we react to the world. And here too, we've had challenges. For everybody, as I said, the Ukraine conflict was a big challenge. Now, the challenges had different dimensions. One of which was that we had this almost 20,000 students who were stuck there when the war started. Now, the reality was most countries in the world actually left the students to fend for themselves. They told them, we warned you that this conflict is coming, you didn't get out in time. So now you figure out a way what to do for yourself. We were one of the few who actually took out our students, and as we have done in many other cases, we have done that thereafter in Israel when the October attack happened. We've done it I think we did it before in Afghanistan. We also brought out people from other countries. So when the world sees a country looking after its citizens, and this for us is a very big message, that it can be the normal day, as I said, making it easier for your passport, or if someone has some kind of professional issue, personal issue, community issue, the willingness to back you up, to stand by you, or in a crisis. We want today Indians going abroad, whether they are tourists, whether they are students, whether they are professionals, whether they are people who live abroad, to have that confidence that the government thinks about you, the government has your back, If you are in a jam, we are there. And this is not just a statement. It is a commitment which is backed by a system, which is, as I said, based on applications of technology and creation of a certain structure of action. There is also, of course, we live in a world where countries depend on each other. I think again, we have in many ways in recent years gained a better reputation, not only for defending our own interests, but also for standing by others. Now, standing by others can have, again, different kinds of examples. We had a neighbor, Sri Lanka, who got into very, very serious trouble. I have, early in my career, lived in Sri Lanka for a few years. I know that society. And, in front of our eyes, you could actually see, a country running out of food, running out of fuel, literally running out of money. And our stepping in at that time, I think actually turned Sri Lanka around. Now, again, there is a message in that to our neighbors as well, that we are today seen as a country on whom the region can depend. I'll give you a very different example. We had the G20 presidency. For years, in the G20, there is one African member, South Africa. And there are 54 African countries. So there was a long-standing feeling that, look, there should be more countries and the African Union at least should have a seat. For 10 years, I have myself been attending G20 meetings. Every meeting they would say, yes, this meeting we should do it. Then they'd say, yes, somehow, sorry, Africa, we got very busy. So the next guy would do it. This went on 10 meetings, one after another. And the one before us, the head of the African Union actually came to Prime Minister Modi and said, look, every meeting you people make this promise and you don't do this. And he promised them. And we actually delivered on that promise of getting African Union in. And if any of you go today to Africa, you have to understand how important this is for Africa's sense of pride. That they feel that, look, they'd actually got cynical about these empty promises. So I want to, give you that feeling today that India is a country where, things are happening, where there is progress on pretty much every front. Of course, we have problems. How can we not, when we are that large a country, which is still, on the recovery path after 2 centuries of colonialism? Incomes will have to grow, facilities will have to increase, quality of life has to go up. But you have a government which is very committed. When we put this vision of Vixit Bharat, again, this is not just a phrase. It is in many ways a motivation. We are confident. Vixit Bharat is not the government's aspiration. It is actually, it's the people's aspiration, it's the nation's aspiration. That we are so capable of doing so many things, and we have today the technology, the resources, the access, the leadership, the motivation to think bigger, to think bolder, to move faster. And most important, and I say this in a country, as I said, where you all feel every day how much the Irish value their culture. It has been a defining part of their national revival. I would say the same about us. That for us today, when we take, when we say International Day of Yoga, or we speak about, the benefits of Ayurveda abroad, when we display, different aspects of our culture, our language, our heritage. I think all of this today is also part of imprinting India much more deeply in the consciousness of the world. And we have to do that because the rise of India, the journey towards Vixit Bharat, is not just another nation rising. We are at least a 5,000-year-old civilization. There are very few civilizational states left in the world today. So when we come to the front ranks of the world, which we will, it will be the arrival of really a very different kind of player. And that too is something which, all of you need to understand, you need to appreciate, and most important, you need to project. So once again, I do want to thank you all. I know, maybe a long, late day for me, but it is for you too. So you've all taken the trouble to come here. I very, very deeply appreciate it. But again, as I said, I'm very hopeful that, by coming here, by engaging my counterparts, I'm able to sort of give a certain additional energy into this relationship. This is a government, this is a country, these are people who are very natural partners of India. You can feel their goodwill and their hospitality and their welcome every day in your own lives. So you don't need me to tell you that. But I do need all of you to ensure that this relationship keeps growing, that the understanding of India keeps increasing, and that the respect for India and the value which India brings for the world is increasingly recognized here. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for your very inspiring message. Dear friends, Honorable Minister has very kindly agreed to take some questions. So please raise your hand and also... Okay, please. Nakulji.
Let him say.
Namaskar, Dr. Jayashankarji. Welcome to Ireland, and we want you to come back again. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on your book, Why Bharat Matters. I think it's a pivotal time for India as a nation because everybody wants to come to India for economic reasons and for peacemaking. The question I wanted to ask you is that India and Ireland both is an innovation hub. So where India's thriving ecosystem in the startup with one of the largest unicorns creator, was over 700 last year, and Ireland as the technical hub for research and development. How do India and Ireland as a nation take steps towards a deeper collaboration with the startup ecosystem, research institution like you mentioned, and companies growing? And the second question that I want to ask in terms of the follow-up question, just a follow-up question, is that Ireland is seen as the gateway to the EU, European Union trade, and India is on the path of digitization, like you mentioned. So how are the two countries and the governments going to work to ease the business for the market accessibility, for making it better for both the companies to lead companies in expansion? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Poonamji.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, welcome to Ireland. We cannot thank you enough. I think it's been a long wait. I'm Councillor Poonam Rani. I have been the first elected representative in Ireland in 2019. And today I stand here a proud Indian. So this means a lot to me and to, I think, everyone who's present here. My question to you is, what took India so long to be here? But also, I myself can see a big change in the current economic system in Ireland and as well as in India. But what can India do to increase their profile in Ireland? Because we have done a lot here, but like you said, it's taken a long time. How can we increase this more and more? Because it means a lot to us. And like I said, we only hope for the best. Thank you.
Yeah. Please.
Namaskar, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Namaskar, sir. Yeah. My name is Rishi here. Sorry. Yes. My name is Rishi. I work with Microsoft here. And first of all, this is a big fan moment for me to see you in person. So my question is, as AI, artificial intelligence, is emerging as a technology which is impacting all the sectors, be it private or public, how does AI factor into India's diplomacy strategy and our bilateral relationships? Yes, thank you.
Honorable Sir, welcome to Ireland. Diplomacy is generally seen as an art of neutrality till now, but in your regime, diplomacy is all about national interest. So, first of all, thank you for putting India on the forefront. We do really feel much safer and much prouder in your national interest first. I would like to ask a question about, in the current political landscape where the powers are so unbalanced, how do you see India's role in kind of, balancing out this power which is quite unbalanced? So I'd like to know more about that from you. Thank you.
श्री राम भक्त हनुमान से प्रेरणा लेने वाले और उनको बहुत बड़ा डिप्लोमेट बताने वाले आप जयशंकर जी को मेरा सादर नमस्कार। मेरा प्रश्न बहुत सिंपल है कि सर, जो लैंडस्केप इंडिया का, जो भारत का जो सिविलाइजेशनल रूट्स में हम वापस जा रहे हैं, जो अवेकनिंग इस गवर्नमेंट ने की है पिछले 10 साल में, बहुत अच्छी है। लेकिन सर, जो हम एनआरआईज यहाँ पर है, हमारे सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज हमारा एनआरआईज के साथ ये होता है कि ये जो हमारा कल्चर सिविलाइजेशन है वो कैसे हम अपने बच्चों को पास डाउन करें। तो एक जो चैलेंज सर हम हमेशा फेस करते हैं कि यहाँ के स्कूल्स में, कॉलेजेस में जिस तरीके से हमारे इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम IKS को पढ़ाया जाता है, उसमें जो है कास्टिज्म है, उसमें जो है आर्यन इन्वेजन थ्योरी है, सिग्निफिकेंट लैक ऑफ रिकॉग्निशन ऑफ इंडियाज साइंटिफिक कंट्रीब्यूशन टू द वर्ल्ड फॉर लास्ट 5000 ईयर्स का जो हमारा कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो बहुत लैक है उसका। हम NRI लोग तो बहुत उसमें कोशिश कर रहे हैं उसको अवेकनिंग की। रिक्वेस्ट हमारी है कि क्या गवर्नमेंट इसमें कुछ कर सकती है, कुछ हम लोगों की मदद कर सकती है?
चलिए, let me respond to the first 5. I think your first question about innovation. Again, look, there is a lot that all of us can learn from the world. I think if one looks at Ireland, what Ireland has done in economic terms, in technology terms, in positioning itself, becoming a research hub, attracting global companies, it's definitely something that, which needs to be looked at very, very seriously. So how can it possibly impact on us in a good way? I think there are a variety of ways. One, of course, there is a trend today for global capability centers that's growing at a fairly rapid pace in India. It's being welcomed. I think people are encouraging it in different ways, and it's already actually, I've seen estimates that its annual revenue today would be somewhere about $150 billion. But this is still at a very, very early stage. The more we are able to link up, corporates, we are able to link up startups, that's one part of it. The other part, which I actually have spoken about today in my meetings, official meetings, but I definitely intend to do tomorrow, is we are very keen now that foreign universities set up collaborative or standalone campuses in India. Some of that has started to happen. We've had a few Australian universities. I've had a very high-ranking British university, more in the pipeline. I think a few American universities which will be coming in. So, Ireland has a very strong education system. So if we can get, I think, the universities linked up, and especially we can actually get Irish universities to set up shop in India, it would make a big difference. So any of you who actually have any influence or say with the university, if you can steer them towards India, I can tell you will be very, very appreciative of that. But most of all, we need that, multiple level connections at different professions, different institutions, at different levels for lot of the, the innovation practices to rub off onto each other. Your follow-up question about Gateway. We are very keen to bring now the FTA with Europe to a conclusion. I am reasonably confident after last week that this is now getting very, very serious in a good way. And we may actually, our target is to see if we can do it by the end of the year. But think about its implication. There will be, the moment an economy like India actually has a FTA with Europe, there's going to be a big spike, a big increase in economic activity. Indian companies will be looking actually for location. And historically, people used to go to UK in many ways for various reasons, language, history, whatever. Now, with that out of the equation, they will be looking at locations. And I think it is conceivable, actually, and again, that is a point which has come up in my discussions, what is the play that Ireland can actually make here to attract Indian businesses and also serve, because it is one of the more business-friendly members of the EU. And that is people in India would appreciate. Your question, what took you so long? Well, look, I can only answer for myself. And honestly, I unfortunately missed coming with Prime Minister Modi. At that time, my predecessor, Sushma ji, came. But it was a short visit and she was there as part of the delegation. When I became foreign minister, I actually had, I was very interested. I had been here 20 years ago. When I was, I would say, a middle-ranking diplomat. So I always had an interest in coming. I started my schooling in a school called St. Patrick's. And I was hoping somewhere that some of you may notice the color of my tie. That first term, to be honest, we lost really 2.5, 3 years on COVID. I mean, COVID was such a, it took so much out of all of us. Because I was part of a group of ministers who were tasked with dealing with COVID. So, we went through the oxygen crisis, the vaccine demands, the creation of a medical infrastructure. But now that, as they say, der aaye, durust aaye. But the fact is that we have today, I think, a very unique possibility of an India looking outwards, willing to do more, much more capable, engaging Ireland at a time when our EU relationships are growing very strong. So I suspect that you may see me more frequently than you may think. On the AI factor, here's an interesting thing about India. We are huge data generators, okay? Partly because our data costs are the cheapest in the world. But we are not just huge data generators. We are also, you look at the diversity of Indian society. the diversity of what we generate is itself of extraordinary value. My sense is just like the digital has enabled the quality of governance to go up very sharply. We are very hopeful that actually the AI era would allow the economy to be fast-tracked. And one thing about in India, people take to new tech practices with a great deal of confidence. It's actually quite interesting as a cultural trait. We are conservative about many other things, but not when it comes to learning, to exploring. I mean, these are things which sort of naturally comes to our mind. We actually, when you spoke about AI and diplomacy, 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Modi was in Paris for the AI Action Summit. And it's very clear today that there are different models of AI, more status models, more privacy-centered models, more, guardrails models, more free enterprise models. I think we would like to be among the people who get the balance right. That, you don't worry about the consequences of technology to a point of stifling it, but at the same time you're respectful about or sensitive to the different aspects of it so that it's not completely left unsupervised and unchecked. I think there's going to be there's already a very big AI sort of AI safety, if you can call it, or AI growth and safety debate going on in the world. So my expectation is we will actually end up as a very balanced, considered player in this. And I'm very confident of the aptitude and the enthusiasm of our country in adopting it. On the neutrality, national interest, look, diplomacy is not about neutrality or need not be about neutrality. Neutrality usually happens when either you're too weak or underconfident. So you say, look, there's a fight between you, don't involve me, I'm neutral in this fight. Or neutrality can happen where you don't care. I mean, please go fight, good luck to you all, I'm out of this one. I would say today, yes, there are conflicts going on in the world, there are very sharp competition and contestation. I think today we have the confidence to look at different players, different situations, and do what is good for the country, but also try to do what is good for the world. It doesn't automatically happen, doesn't happen so easily. It's not always sometimes the most popular thing to do. You can be at the receiving end of difficult arguments. But once you have that confidence, once you have a sense that in this situation, this is my interest and I'm going to back it up and I will stand firm. I think confidence, is a sort of self-generating energy. If you pull off 1, 2 of these, then you become stronger and firmer as you go along. And we have, precisely because of all the changes that I shared with all of you, I think the mood in India is a very, very confident mood. I say this in all objectivity. I think it is so visible in the persona of the Prime Minister that today when people look at the Prime Minister in different settings, hear him, that feeling is there that, here is a person who carries our hopes, who in a sense carries our trust, that his judgment, his understanding, his confidence, I think is a huge source of strength to the nation. And frankly, that, it's like if you are a member of a team and you have a great captain who's scoring runs prolifically, the rest of the team shapes up. So it's very infectious in a good way. The last question, जो आपका सवाल जो था कि जो आपकी चिंता जो थी कि जो नई पीढ़ी के लिए हम अपनी संस्कृति, परंपरा, विरासत उनको हम जैसे आपने कहा कैसे पास ऑन करें। देखिए स्वाभाविक तो है, क्योंकि जब लोग अपने देश के बाहर रहते हैं, किसी और वातावरण में रहते हैं, तो जो युवा पीढ़ी जो होती है उन पे सबसे ज़्यादा प्रभाव तो स्कूल का पड़ता है, उनके दोस्तों का पड़ता है, घर का भी पड़ता है, पर माने कहीं वो भी मिक्स और मैच करते हैं। तो मैं कहूँगा इसका सुझाव जो है आप ही लोगों में, ये देखिए सर, इसमें अगर घर में आप ये करें, कम्युनिटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के माध्यम से करें, तो आई डोंट नो इनफ अबाउट हाउ द कम्युनिटी इज़ ऑर्गेनाइज्ड हियर, बट इन मैनी अदर प्लेसेस जहाँ मेरा अनुभव जो है सिंगापुर है या जापान है या थोड़ा बहुत चीन में, हमारी वैसे समुदाय उतनी बड़ी नहीं है वहाँ, यूएस में, तो जहाँ जहाँ स्ट्रॉन्ग कम्युनिटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस और कम्युनिटी टेक्स द लीड। अब इन मेनी केसेस मैंने देखा कि अगर मंदिर बनाना हो, कोई डांस एकेडमी बनानी हो, कोई टीचर ट्रेनिंग देना हो, बच्चों को कुछ सिखाना हो, इन मेनी केसेस इट इज़ एक्चुअली कम्युनिटी which has been the upholder of the Indian knowledge system। तो मैं तो आपको कहूँगा कि इसमें आप अपने ऊपर विश्वास करिए, आप में वो ताकत है।
Sir, unfortunately, you will have to leave for your next commitment. Dear friends, it has been a great pleasure, great honor for all of us to listen to Dr. Jaishankar in person. We have been watching his interviews online, but seeing in person is really, really something special. Thank you, friends. Thanks a lot.